Before we get into anything, though, I would like to apologize for our lack of videos lately. We have them all filmed, but unfortunately, Fairy here, she's our only editor.
And
half because it's her camera we're using, and half because I don't know how to edit. And Fairy's been rather busy lately, so.
yeah, job, school. It's been a pretty crazy year for both of us, but I do apologize. I haven't had a lot of time to edit, and believe it or not, even though we're not YouTubers with all the fancy editing and animations that we put in, this does still take a lot of time to edit. So November will not be the same, I can promise you that, for the upcoming months, so I do apologize for that.
And also, you will hear lots of barking, probably in these and the rest of the Halloween videos, because we have some work being done on my house, so every time we plan to film, work's going to be happening, and Arya is actually pretty good about it, but Cody, he barks if he sees any unfamiliar human in his territory he has not been introduced to.
Mm-hmm.
So you will be hearing him bark quite a bit. Like, the work's all being done outside, so you won't really hear the work, but you will hear Cody being displeased about it. So just, bear with that, because we might be able to cut some of it out of these videos, but I can't say how much.
Mm-hmm.
So, shall we get into our first video then?
We shall.
So, we wanted to do 4 different Halloween specials this year. So we picked 4 either obscure or old ones.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes both. So if you haven't heard of them, I wouldn't be surprised. So the first one we've got is the Halloween tree.
Yes. It came out in 1993, and it is based on a fantasy novel by Ray Bradbury, who also is the narrator in the movie.
Yep. So,
to explain the movie without giving a lot of spoilers,
it's impossible. You really can't get into this without spoilers, at least we don't think you can. So, if you don't want spoilers, go find a place to watch it and then come back.
Mm-hmm.
But if you don't mind, fantastic, we'll keep going.
Mm-hmm. So the Halloween tree takes place in a very small town, and
it's Halloween, and the main characters are children, and they're getting ready to go trick-or-treating.
mm-hmm.
We've got, in no particular order, just the ones I remember, there's Ralph, who's dressing as a mummy, Tom, who's dressing as a skeleton,
Jenny, who dresses as a witch, and
Molly is a monster.
So they meet up, and
they're going to go get their other friend, Pip,
mm-hmm.
who's for some reason not there yet.
Which they find out because Pip loves Halloween just as much as they do.
And he's like the leader of the group.
Mm-hmm.
So they go to his house and they find this letter saying he has appendicitis and his parents have taken him to the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know much about appendicitis, but one thing that kind of takes me out of the narrative is you have to know you have it like ahead of time. Right? You don't just suddenly know and then go to the hospital to get taken care of.
Well, we did see an ambulance driving away from his house. Maybe...
Did he have the time to write a letter?
It was a little strange, yes, because appendicitis
saying, like,
is...
If he knew about it ahead of time, why didn't he tell his friends?
And appendicitis is usually has a very rapid onset, so why would he even have the time to write the letter?
Because it was him who wrote it.
Because when you have appendicitis, you have a very limited time frame to actually remove your appendix before it bursts inside of you, and then
Yeah.
that can cause your body a whole lot of problems.
So it wasn't like his parents that wrote it, it was him. It was signed him, and his friends didn't seem to think the handwriting looked off. So that did take me a bit out of the narrative. I don't think it did the first time I saw it because I was much younger.
Mm-hmm. But when you go back and you're older and you know a little bit more about it, then it does seem a little odd. But then again, this is a film that's aimed toward children, and I don't think you expect children to know a lot about that.
Yeah. Okay. Keep going.
Okay. So anyway, the kids, they find it very, very odd that, like Dragon was saying, and I believe,
Well, at first they think he's pulling a prank on them.
yes, they all think he's pulling a prank.
Especially since once they start walking away from the house, they're like, he's probably playing a prank on us, and then he'll get more candy, so they're gonna run off to try to, trick or treat and to find him.
And they actually do, I believe it's Tom who sees him, but he looks
He's
like
see-through.
he's see-through. He looks like a ghost. And
He's carrying a pumpkin,
and
which vaguely looks like his face.
And he's running into the ravine, which is actually very, very, it's like this big ditch, and it's very scary, and it goes through dark woods and everything, typical horror movie almost.
Yes, so they
setting.
chase after him, and they eventually get to this big house.
Mm-hmm. And
It looks like the classic haunted house, in all honesty. And they meet this old man in it,
mm-hmm.
who is after Pip as well because he's owed. He keeps referring it to as his rent,
Mm-hmm. But
and Pip has failed to pay, so he needs to collect.
mm-hmm.
So the old man, his name is Mr. Mustard, or at least that's what they call him throughout the thing.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't. Well, the kids ask him to take them with him when he goes after Pip because Pip is like
Pip is trying to get away. He takes his pumpkin
he
and
can fly and go through walls, so he's very difficult to catch. So they beg Mr. Mustard to take them with him, and he's like, at first he's like, no, you don't even know why you're wearing these costumes.
mm-hmm.
He's very annoyed by it. So they
convince him to
and he's
let them come.
He's like, we've got a lot of time. It's hours away before sunrise. So we can have a little scavenger hunt while we're at it. And so they follow Pip, through lots of different means. At first, it's the giant kite, and the kids are the kite tail. And it was their idea, and Mr. Munson is very proud of that.
Mm-hmm.
And their first stop is ancient Egypt.
Mm-hmm.
They go through time, and then with Ralph, who's a mummy, we find out why a mummy is a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And ancient Egyptians, what they thought of the dead and them coming back, and their own, I guess, equivalent of Halloween.
Mm-hmm.
So we learn about that. And then the next one is
England.
Jenny.
And they go to England. They end up at Stonehenge, where they first see some druids performing some magic, and
Well, they see lots of different renditions of witches who are really just people who are smarter than their peers.
and but
And
eventually,
it's explained they don't do magic, they don't have this awesome power, they were just people who were smart.
but there were still people who had a problem with that because they thought they were doing magic and witchcraft, and they were all like devil worshippers out to get them and everything.
Yeah. So when we find out why the rooms were important, and Jenny has to face her fear of heights.
Because she is afraid of heights.
Yeah. And then, Pip leaves the area again, so they follow him on brooms.
So their next stop is Notre Dame in Paris, where this was when it was still incomplete. It was under construction.
So this one is Wally's I guess if you want to use video game logic, it's his level.
Mm-hmm.
And it's explained, you know, gargoyles are usually attached to buildings to ward off evil, to protect the place. So that's why monsters are an important thing.
And Pip is there, and he's this gargoyle statue. And Wally has to talk him down, and it's actually very interesting because you find out how a lot of the kids do feel about Pip, even though he's their friend, because a few of them do have this like jealousy toward Pip for various reasons.
Because he's the leader, he's good at everything.
But like the other two timelines, Pip gets away and they move on to Mexico, where El Dia de los Muertos is happening.
Also known in English as the Day of the Dead.
Mm-hmm.
Which is actually, fun fact, not on our Halloween day. It's not on October 31st. It's on, I believe, November 2nd.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's where the skeleton comes in. So this is Tom's, his mission. So they go through New Mexico in certain parts and learn about the Day of the Dead. And then they get to a crypt where, you know, Pip is hanging out. So Tom, by himself, has to go through the hallway, which is filled with these zombie-like things. Rather creepy. So he gets there and he apologizes to Pip, and Pip's like, "Why are you apologizing?" Tom once wished that something would happen to Pip because Tom wanted to be leader for a change, and Pip's like, "I'll let you be leader anytime."
Pip doesn't get away this time. Tom gets the pumpkin, and Mr. Monstroon tells them that it's too late for Pip.
And he somehow gets the pumpkin instead.
Now the children,
they're pissed.
They're pissed.
They went through all this. They got the pumpkin. They beat him to it, and he's like, "It's not a race."
So they end up.
And then he goes back on to Pip couldn't pay his rent, and now I have to collect.
And the children, they don't want this to happen to Pip, so they offer Mr. Monstroon 1 year of their life in exchange for more time for Pip.
Yeah, at the end of their life. So basically it means they're going to live 1 year less than they would have.
So he accepts.
He's actually rather impressed, because at first it's just Tom who's offering, and then the rest do. And they're like, "It's a good deal, 4 for 1. He's like, "Awesome."
So
he's rather impressive. He's like, "Think about this. You might not care now, but at the end, when I come to collect, you will." And they're like, "No, we're good."
So he gives them each a sugar skull, because we're still in Mexico and it's the Day of the Dead, with Pip's name on it.
He breaks it into 4 pieces. They all eat one, and then they're back at Pip's house.
And Pip wakes up, and to him it seemed like everything was a dream, but he can remember everything.
Yeah, and he's like, "You know, they took out my appendix, but for a while there they didn't think I was gonna make it." And then, you know, he thanks them, and they're like, "What? We didn't do anything." He's like, "I had these dreams about New Mexico and ancient Egypt." So he thanks them again, and that's pretty much it.
Although you do see the Halloween tree at the very end, and all the pumpkins are gone except for Pip's.
Yep, so the implication throughout this whole thing is that the old man is like either death or the Grim Reaper. Depends on how you think of it. So yes, that's the basic summary. I know we don't normally go into that much detail, but this is such an obscure thing that we wanted to make sure
Because
our
explaining
audience would understand everything.
Because explaining this without giving any spoilers would have been impossible, because no one would have had any idea what we were actually talking about.
Yeah.
So that's the whole plot of the Halloween tree.
So the characters, like, okay, so this is like a it's one movie, an hour and a half long. You're not gonna get a whole lot of depth. But the characters that we get, they're all interesting. As was mentioned earlier, even though they're friends, a number of them do have their own issues with Pip.
Because, like Dragon said, in the case of Tom, Pip's always been the leader, and Tom's kind of jealous of that. And then, because with Wally, he always thought Pip was much cooler. He had this air about him that made people like him more, and
that is intimidating to have a friend who you just view as better than you. So, like, there were issues, and not all of them, like, Jenny, for example, was like, who's going to talk me out of an apple tree next time? When she was trying to get to him, and, so their friendships, they weren't one note. They were friends, and they supported each other, and they clearly liked hanging out, but there were also underlying issues.
Which is very interesting, because this is, again, a children's movie, and
normally if issues come, it's like you see them unfolding. Like we would actually see, them get into a fight or whatever on screen. Here it was an underlying thing that they just didn't acknowledge until we might lose him. I don't know, I liked that.
But
and the old man, I know he has a name, but I'm going to keep referring to him as the old man because that's how I kind of think of him. He's a mix of things.
He is.
Like, he doesn't want them to come, but he does want them to learn, and he's proud of the steps they take, but he's still this creepy old man.
And he's still gung-ho on getting Pip's soul, because that's his job. That's his job.
And he's like, he's a bit callous about it, but he's never, like, vindictive or overly rude.
So I thought that was pretty interesting. From a character who's supposed to be our antagonist. But yeah, as a movie, it's very interesting, although, fun fact, in the book which came out in 1972 that this was based upon, Jenny actually wasn't in the book. There was a boy character named Henry Hank, and he was actually the one dressed up as a witch. Now, why a young boy is dressed up as a witch, that's a little questionable, considering the time period.
Historically speaking, witches were not all women, but
no.
Stereotypically
they are, but warlocks were a thing.
And, you rarely see a boy dressed like that. Sometimes they're like a wizard with a robe and the wizard hat, but not a witch. That's more of a girl thing. But I'm okay that they changed it for the movie, because it's more appealing to a general audience if it's not a cast that is only one gender.
The gender flip wasn't necessary, but I think it worked. Because I'm being honest, this movie came out in 1993. Now, I wasn't old enough to watch this movie back then, but if I was, say, a 4 or 5-year-old then and I was watching that movie, I would definitely have questions as to why there's a little boy dressed as a witch.
Yeah, and I liked that they just left it, not ambiguous, that they were dealing with death, but they never outright said it. The implication was there, but it's never actually said.
Because with a lot of children's movies...
Well, no, it's not even that. It's not even that, avoiding the concept of death. I just thought it made it more powerful.
It did, actually. I will give it that.
This is just a natural thing, and, we don't rave about it raining. Well, sometimes we do, but that's more if it's annoying us. It's just a natural phenomenon. If it rains, you don't question it. So And that's kind of how I see it. And, and leaving it, as just an implication makes you think, which I liked.
Mhm. So yeah, that's pretty much the Halloween tree.
So we've got 3 more. Again, they're all going to be old or not so well known, or both. And a further stipulation we gave ourselves was some of the events, not all of them, but at least some of them have to take place on Halloween.
Mhm.
Because there are lots of Halloween movies that they don't even say what day it is, so some of it could be on Halloween.
Yeah, so that was our first one. Like Dragon said, we have 3 more to go.
So we'll see you then.
All right, bye guys.
Bye.